జస్ట్ మీరు అలా చెప్పుకుంటూ వెళ్ళిపోయి స్లైడ్ చేంజ్ చేసినప్పుడు జస్ట్ ఇది యారో అంతే, వెనక్కి ముందుకి ఇలా చెప్పుకుని ఎక్కువ ఏం చేస్తారు, జస్ట్ మీరు స్లైడ్ చేంజ్ చేయడం అంతే, అన్ని కొద్దిగా గట్టిగా చెప్పాలి అంతే. స్లైడ్ చేంజ్ అంటే
సైడ్ ఆరో. ఓకే. Okay, good morning. Today's topic of discussion will be amoebiasis, and the class will be dealt in these topics on the basis of these side headings. Initially, we'll deal with the definition, followed by the life cycle and the transmission, coming to the epidemiology, followed by pathogenesis, clinical features, diagnosis, differential diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. Coming to the definition, it's an infection caused by Entamoeba histolytica. It is an intestinal protozoan. In this infection, majority 90% of the people having this infection, there will be asymptomatic carriers. The remaining 10%, it will cause invasive amoebiasis. Like, it's a spectrum of clinical syndromes ranging from amoebic colitis, it can be followed by like fulminant colitis, or it can also cause amoebic liver abscess. This is the life cycle of Entamoeba histolytica. The main infective form will be the tetranucleate cyst. Ingestion of contaminated food and water with having the viable tetranucleate cyst. So that cyst will be ingested and in contaminated food and water. Excision will occur in the small intestine, releasing a motile trophozoite. In 90% of the patients who are asymptomatic carriers, these motile trophozoites will act as common cells. So further, encystation will occur in the large intestine, and the tetranucleate cyst will be excreted in the feces. This happens in 90% of the people. These are asymptomatic carriers. The rest 10% of the people, these motile trophozoites, they can cause invasive amoebiasis. This invasive amoebiasis can be intestinal or extraintestinal. These trophozoites, they'll disturb the bowel mucosa, and then they'll become tissue trophozoites. Further, and these will cause ulcers in the bowel wall. Sometimes through the hematogenous spread, these will go into the liver through the portal venule, and then they can multiply over there. Majority of the times, they may not multiply in the liver, but 1/3 of the cases, they will multiply in the liver and cause liver parenchymal damage and ultimately result in amoebic liver abscess. The infective stage is the tetranucleate cyst. Fecal-oral route through contaminated food and water, or direct hand-to-mouth transmission. Other routes of transmission are also oral and anal sexual practices. One more means of infection will be through colonic irrigation devices. Direct rectal inoculation through colonic irrigation devices. This is the same life cycle which is put in word form. Excision will occur in the small intestine. Motile trophozoites remain as harmless commensals in the large intestine. This happens in 90% of the cases, which are asymptomatic carriers. Encystation and shed in the stools. Cyst survives for several weeks in moist environment. In the remaining 10% of the people, these trophozoites will invade the bowel mucosa, causing amoebic colitis, or via the bloodstream, they cause distinct abscesses in the liver, lung, brain. Liver is the most common. Coming to the epidemiology, it's most common in the tropical countries where there is poor sanitation and hygiene. But in developed countries, who are the people at risk? These are the people who are coming, like who have gone to an endemic area and getting back, or people who are coming into a developed country from an endemic area, or in a military people, or homosexual men, or in inmates of institutions where there is poor sanitation. Men are more affected than women. Next, coming to the pathogenesis. What are the factors which determine the pathogenesis? The first being the strain. Which strain, like Entamoeba histolytica and Entamoeba dispar, are morphologically identical. Their cysts are morphologically identical. But what is the difference? Entamoeba histolytica is more virulent compared to dispar. Dispar usually causes self-limiting diseases. Next, coming to the what determines the strain, virulence of the species. Virulent strains are capable of transformation into invasive due to adherence and colonization, enterotoxin production, contact-dependent cell lysis, proteolytic enzyme secretion. And what are the host factors which will determine the pathogenesis? One is decreased immunity or malnutrition or use of immunosuppressive drugs and other associated intestinal conditions. These all will cause more disease. Like these may be symptomatic patients. This is a pictorial depiction of the pathogenesis. Initially, the amoeba will come and then adhere to the intestinal epithelial cells, followed by activation of the virulence program. Then cell damage will, with release of interleukin 1 beta, that is proteinase cleaving IL-1 beta. Followed that cytokines and inflammatory mediators are produced. Neutrophil influx will be there. Mediators damage the epithelial cells. The damaged neutrophil will be there, and amoeba will invade into there become tissue trophozoites. Next, coming to the pathology. Initially, the ulcers formed by this are micro ulcers in the bowel mucosa. Later, the underlying bed of the ulcer, necrotic damage will occur and they'll convert into flash-shaped ulcers. Here, the first picture will show the top. It is like a flask shape. The bowel mucosa is disrupted. Then further down, deep down, tissue damage will occur. And then in the extending into the submucosa and muscularis, and they'll cause flash shaped ulcers. Usually these ulcers don't perforate, unlike in typhoid ulcers. The other thing will be the second picture showing the amoeba, that is the exuberant growth of the granulation tissue. If at all we biopsy these amoebomas, you can see the trophozoites of the Entamoeba histolytica. Here you have to differentiate, the differential diagnosis will be the carcinoma of the colon that has to be differentiated based upon biopsy. The third picture is the amoebic liver abscess. Here what you're supposed to note is the amoebic liver abscess. It's a single large abscess. Usually this abscess will be in the right lobe of the liver, majority of the times. The other extraintestinal manifestations will be pulmonary amoebiasis, where abscesses can be in the lung, lung or in the brain, cerebral amoebiasis or cutaneous amoebiasis, and also the urogenital tract involvement. Next, coming to the clinical features. The most important thing to be remembered over here is majority of the patients are asymptomatic carriers. The clinical syndromes, the range of clinical syndromes will be like intestinal amoebiasis to extraintestinal amoebiasis. What are all the things which can be seen in intestinal amoebiasis? It can either present as amoebic colitis. 90% of the people are asymptomatic. The rest 10% of people are symptomatic. Among this 10% intestinal amoebiasis, majority of the patients will be presenting in amoebic colitis. They'll present with abdominal pain, diarrhea with blood and mucus, malaise, weight loss. A very severe fulminant intestinal infection will be toxic megacolon. That is usually seen in children, corticosteroid therapy, pregnancy. What will be the manifestations over here? The thing to remember over here is, unlike in amoebic colitis, fever presentation will be in very few people, unlike in bacillary dysentery. Bacillary dysentery people will be having main presentation will be along with fever. But in amoebic colitis, fever presentation is only seen in 1/3 of the patients. But in toxic megacolon, it's a fulminant disease. Patient will be presenting with high spikes of fever, severe abdominal pain, profuse bloody diarrhea. They can be necrotic colon, and colonic perforation is also very high in these cases of toxic megacolon. Here we need to know the differences between the amoebic dysentery and the bacillary dysentery. Amoebic dysentery, usually it will be the number of frequency will be 6 to 8 times. But if it is toxic megacolon, then they can have severe diarrhea. In bacillary dysentery, it's more than 10 times per day. That's the average. Copious amount of stool will be there, and along with the stool, blood and mucus will be there. But in bacillary dysentery, it is like loose water. The other important thing is pus cells are scanty over in amoebic dysentery, while numerous in bacillary dysentery. And Charcot-Leyden crystals are present in amoebic dysentery and absent in bacillary dysentery. And in stool examination, you can see the trophozoites or the stool tetranucleate cyst. Here, you will not have the trophozoites or the cysts. Next, intestinal manifestation. So far we have covered amoebic colitis, toxic megacolon. The other intestinal manifestation will be amoebomas. Here there will be exuberant proliferation of the granulation tissue. These raised, you can like corrugated raised things, edges you can see in the mucosa, in the bowel wall. That is the amoeboma. It is a localized chronic infection of the cecum of the rectum. There can be single or multiple lesions. If you do biopsy, you may find the trophozoites. That will be the main differentiating feature from carcinoma. In carcinoma, you will be having the respective histopathology picture. In these patients, you will have serum antibodies will be there. Coming to the extraintestinal amoebiasis, the main majority of presentation will be amoebic liver abscess. Usually in young patients present in an acute phase, that is febrile, right hypochondrial pain will be there. Old patients, it will take a subacute course. Means acute manifestations will not be there, like fever or severe pain wouldn't be there. So in a chronic course, weight loss and hepatomegaly can be seen. What is the main thing in amoebic liver abscess to be remembered is the anchovy sauce. Initially, the the fluid collection in the amoebic liver abscess will be pink, but later it will become convert into chocolate brown color. This is called anchovy sauce. What are the complications of amoebic liver abscess? It can cause a sterile pleural effusion or contiguous spread of abscess into the lung or rupture into the pleural space, or it can cause a hepatobronchial fistula, or it can rupture into the peritoneum or rupture into the pericardium. When it is causing a hepatobronchial fistula, this necrotic material can be coughed up with the sputum, and in the sputum, when the sputum is examined, you can see the trophozoites. Actually, this hepatobronchial fistula carries a good prognosis. Rupture into the pericardium has the worst prognosis. And the left lobe abscess are more prone into rupture into the pericardium. Rupture into the peritoneum, it can present as an indolent cause or it can present as acute abdomen. In the first X-ray, you can see what I wanted to show is the elevation of the right hemidiaphragm. Normally it is higher than the left, but more elevation of the right hemidiaphragm compared to the left. The pattern of C, it is the cut open section of the liver showing the amoebic liver abscess. And this is the CT scan image, where you can see a single large lesion. Single large lesion in the right lobe of the liver. Next, other extraintestinal manifestations apart from amoebic liver abscess are pulmonary abscess. It's most likely due to direct extension from the liver, caused by rupture of the right upper lobe liver abscess through the diaphragm. Occurs in around 10% of amoebic liver abscess patients. They'll have severe pleuritic type of chest pain, dyspnea, and non-productive. Case fatality rate is high, 15 to 20%. Trophozoites can be seen in the sputum. This is the chest X-ray picture showing the fluid level in the lung abscess and pulmonary amoebiasis. And one more thing I wanted to mention over here is an amoebic liver abscess. By the time this patient is presenting with amoebic liver abscess, he might not be showing any symptoms of amoebic colitis. Only if amoebic colitis is very severe and it's chronic, then only less than 1/3 of the patients can be simultaneously presented with both colitis and abscess. The other extraintestinal manifestations are like involvement in the distant abscesses in the brain, that is cerebral amoebiasis, or the genitourinary tract involvement. Other extraintestinal manifestations are cutaneous amoebiasis, amoebic peritonitis, and amoebic pericarditis. Next, coming to the diagnosis. The diagnosis is based upon stool examination, serological test, and non-invasive imaging of the liver. Coming to the stool examination, fecal findings are suggestive of amoebic colitis. Positive test for the heme. The most important stool examination finding in amoebic colitis will be the RBC-laden trophozoites of Entamoeba histolytica. So positive test for heme. Paucity of neutrophils, as these neutrophils are damaged. So paucity of neutrophils will be there. Amoebic cysts or trophozoites can be seen. Usually these amoebic cysts are viable for months in moist environment, but the trophozoites, they die immediately. If a patient is having severe amoebic colitis, then there will not be any time for encystation of these trophozoites. So sometimes the trophozoites can be directly seen in the stool sample. These trophozoites are susceptible to like water contact or drying, they will die. Definitive diagnosis by presence of hematophagous trophozoites of Entamoeba histolytica is the definitive diagnosis. If stool examination is negative, we can do sigmoidoscopy with biopsy of the edge of the ulcer. You can get the trophozoites, but it is an invasive procedure and it's very dangerous in fulminant colitis. Biopsy of the amoeboma shows trophozoites. The most sensitive and specific stool test is enzyme immunoassay detection of the GAL and GAL N-acetylcysteine lectin of Entamoeba histolytica and PCR stool panels. Liver abscess aspirate showing a trophozoite is very rare, because in the liver abscess, whatever will aspirate will be the necrotic liver parenchymal tissue. The trophozoites will be in the margin of the capsule, will be in the capsule of the abscess. This is the saline preparation and the iodine preparation of Entamoeba histolytica. The cysts of Entamoeba histolytica and Dispar are almost identically similar. The other thing will be the imaging of the liver abscess, that is ultrasound, CT and MRI. Serology, enzyme-linked immunosorbent assays. Agar gel diffusion assays are positive in more than 90% of the cases with colitis, amoeba and liver abscess. What is the importance of these serology tests? These are mainly helpful in non-endemic areas to identify the asymptomatic patients who might develop into invasive amoebiasis. So that is the importance of serology tests. What would be the differential diagnosis? So amoebic dysentery has to be differentiated from bacillary dysentery. The other, like patients presenting with right hypochondrial pain, associated cholelithiasis has to be differentiated, and lung abscess, typhoid, malaria, and the main other differential diagnosis would be pyogenic liver abscess. This pyogenic liver abscess, usually it will be most common seen in immunocompromised patients and post-surgical patients and sepsis patients. These pyogenic liver abscess, there will be multiple. Amoebic liver abscess, usually it is a single large abscess seen in the right lobe of the liver. But if a patient is presenting very acutely in less than symptoms of less than 10 days duration, then you can see small amoebic liver abscess. Finally, what will happen is these will all coalesce and form a single large abscess. That is the difference between the amoebic liver abscess and the pyogenic liver abscess. What is the treatment? The treatment depends upon two different lines. You have to treat the intestinal. You have to treat the intestinal disease also, and if at all there is an extraintestinal disease, you have to treat both the intestinal and the extraintestinal also, because the main source is through the intestine only. They would have gone to distant areas. If it's an asymptomatic carrier, what is the treatment? Asymptomatic carrier means mostly they're not symptomatic, so usually you'll treat with luminal agents. It's idoquinol 650 mg TID for 20 days or paramomycin 500 mg TID for 10 days. These are the luminal agents. Acute colitis, metronidazole, that is 750 mg per oral or IV TID for 5 to 10 days, or tinidazole 2 grams per oral for 3 days. And plus you have to give a luminal agent. Amoebic liver abscess. Amoebic liver abscess, you have to treat with an you have to treat the abscess plus also the luminal agent like idoquinol or paramomycin has to be given. That is metronidazole 750 mg per oral IV for 5 days, 2 grams tinidazole or ornidazole plus a luminal agent. What are the indications for aspiration of liver abscess? To rule out like pyogenic abscess, first of all, if a patient is presenting in less than 10 days, there will be multiple small abscesses. You're having a strong suspicion that it is a pyogenic abscess. Then aspirate. Aspirate and Gram-Stain analysis will differentiate this amoebic from a bacterial. Usually, when you start metronidazole, patient will show symptomatic improvement. That is, the fever and the right hypochondrial tenderness will come down in at least 72 hours. But if there is no clinical response beyond 72 hours, then you have to aspirate the liver abscess. If at all there is a chance of imminent rupture, or to prevent rupture of the left lobe abscess into the pericardium. Actually, there are no guidelines stating that if an abscess is around 10 centimeters, so to prevent rupture, you need to aspirate. There is no such indications, even if it is 10 centimeters. The next most important step is prevention. How do you prevent? Because this is all through contaminated food, water, or through contaminated hands, or where there is no proper sanitation or hygiene. So, drink proper clean food, like avoid eating uncooked material. Wash your fruits and vegetables thoroughly. And then in non-endemic areas, how to prevent the transmission, early detection of the carriers. Drinking boiled water, avoid like oral and anal sexual practices. And then family members or close contacts of an index case should be screened. Disinfection by iodination. Here we are not telling chlorination because it is resistant to even high doses of chlorine. So disinfection by iodination, that is tetraglycine hydroperoxide. Um, like following all these practices is better because there is no effective prophylaxis. At the end of this topic, like this is the one of the intestinal protozoan. The other intestinal protozoans are Giardia, Microspora, Cryptosporidium. Giardias is also the like it is through contaminated food and water only. The cyst will be ingested, um, and in the small intestine, exgestation will occur, and flagellate trophozoite will be uh, released in the intestine, and this flagellate trophozoite will cause damage. Usually, majority of these patients they go unnoticed. It is a self-limiting disease, and one of the important tests for diagnosis will be a string test. That is, the patient will be ingesting overnight, and then the next day it will be extracted, and then it will be showing motile trophozoites, flagellated trophozoites, which are specific for Giardia. Giardiasis cause Giardia lamp. The other ones are Microsporidium, Isospora, Cryptosporidium. Usually these are all self-limiting diseases, but in an immunocompromised patient, they will cause severe diseases. So finally, what is your take-home message? This take-home message, this slide will be your take-home message. You need to remember this slide, which will depict the entire life cycle of the Entamoeba histolytica. What are the manifestations of Entamoeba histolytica? And apart from this, what else you need to remember is only the treatment part. Ingestion of the fecally contaminated food and water containing Entamoeba histolytica cyst. The infective form is the tetranucleate cyst. This exgestation, it will occur in the small intestine, and then after exgestation a motile trophozoite is released. 90% of the patients present as these motile trophozoites present as commensals. So they further move down the intestine, and in the colon they get encysted, and then initially two nucleate cysts, and then 4 nucleate cysts will be formed in the cecum, and then this will be excreted in the feces. This happens in 90% asymptomatic infections. These are self-limiting. The other 10% is the invasive disease, which comprises of intestinal colitis and intestinal disease and extraintestinal disease. Intestinal disease may present as colitis, amoebic colitis. Its severe form is toxic megacolon. They can also present as amoebomas. The other extraintestinal manifestation can be amoebic liver abscess, which is the most common. Amoebic liver abscess are most common seen in adults, more common in men. And then other sites of distant metastasis can be the brain. If there is a distant metastasis in the brain, patient can be presenting with neurological symptoms, like patient can have seizures, altered consciousness, if it is cerebral amoebiasis. Or it can also present as pleural, pleural effusion can be there when in associated liver abscess. Or it can present directly as pulmonary amoebiasis. Pulmonary amoebiasis, usually the other associated SOB, cough, dyspnea will be there. And if it's a hepatobronchial fistula, coughing up of copious amounts of necrotic material will be there. The other thing to remember in the diagnosis is the stool examination, which is the most definitive diagnosis is by the presence of hematophagous trophocytes or entamoeba histolytica. The other important point to be remembered is more sensitive and specific stool tests are enzyme immunoassay detection of galnectin of entamoeba histolytica and PCR stool panels. The other thing which needs to be remembered and written in your question in your answer will be the treatment, which is divided on the terms of asymptomatic carriers, treatment of acute colitis, and treatment of amoebic liver abscess. And along in amoebic liver abscess, you need to remember about the indications for aspiration of amoebic liver abscess. If it's a large amoebic liver abscess, and there's an imminent rupture, and then along with aspiration, pigtail catheter incision, continuous drainage is also attempted. So that would be the end of the session. Once again. Okay, thank you. ఒకసారి వస్తారా గిరీష్ మ్యామ్? అయిపోయింది. చిన్న టాపిక్.
మీరు చెప్పండి.
Anyone would like to ask questions? Or it's not clear, you want any point to be cleared again? ఇక్కడ వస్తాయా?
అది పోస్ట్లో పెట్టాలనుకుంటాడు. ఎవరైనా ఉన్నారు మీటింగ్ రూమ్?
నాకు ఐడియా లేదు, నాది ఫస్ట్.
నేను పంపిస్తున్నాను.
యాక్చువల్లీ వాళ్ళు ఏమైనా పోస్ట్ చేస్తే ఇక్కడ వస్తాయా?
పడతాయి. పెట్టాను, ఇప్పుడే పెట్టాను.
మరి ఇంత చిన్న Hello.
మీటింగ్ క్లోజ్ చేస్తున్నాం.